Hi. Today, we're diving into one of the darkest legends in history: medieval torture devices. But what if the Iron Maiden was never real? What if the tools of terror we've all feared were carefully crafted lies? In this episode, we follow historian Clara Weiss as she uncovers a chilling secret buried beneath Prague Castle. One that could unravel everything we think we know about the past. The air inside the old vault beneath Prague Castle is colder than it should be. Dust chokes the narrow stone stairway as Clara Weiss, a rising but unrecognized medieval historian, descends deeper than any tourist is ever allowed to go. She shouldn't be here. The catacombs are closed, sealed off for safety. But her research grant has expired. Her university's patience has worn thin, and her instincts refuse to quiet. Clara believes there's something still hidden beneath the foundations of European history. And tonight she finds it. Behind a half-collapsed limestone wall, her flashlight catches the edge of a small iron box embedded in a broken altar stone. It's ancient, rusted shut, sealed with a sigil she doesn't recognize. Not Latin, not Gothic. After several tense minutes of delicate work, it creaks open. Inside, a leather-bound manuscript, bloated with age, its pages blackened at the edges. The cover is marked with a blood-red handprint. Real blood, faded but unmistakable. And the title? Scrawled in archaic Czech. Kniha Strachu, the Book of Fear. The manuscript is written in a brutal cipher, with splatters that look like they came from a quill, or something worse. There are illustrations too, twisted devices no museum catalog has ever shown. Hooks that seem designed to never let go. Wheels lined with teeth. And in the margins, always the same name, repeated again and again. Valen. But when Clara searches archives for the name Inquisitor Valen, there's nothing. No birth records. No trial logs. No mention in Vatican lists nor among the Moravian clerical registers. It's as if the man never existed. Yet the style of the writing, the phrasing, they carry a disturbing familiarity. It's as if Valen was there at the heart of medieval fear, but erased with surgical precision. Clara's heart races. The deeper she reads, the more the air seems to tighten around her. A line on the last page chills her to the bone. What is not remembered cannot be forgiven. What is not seen cannot be feared. Suddenly, the vault light flickers. Dust falls from the ceiling above her. Something about this discovery feels alive, as if it's been waiting for centuries to be seen again. And Clara just turned the first page. Clara doesn't sleep. The pages of the Book of Fear haunt her, calling her deeper into the madness of medieval cruelty. But one detail gnaws at her the most: Inquisitor Valen. His name repeats like a whisper throughout the manual, but he doesn't exist in any official record. Not in university databases. Not in church archives. Not even in the whispered folklore of Bohemian monks. And that makes him more dangerous than any known figure. Clara begins to trace a pattern through scattered 14th century court cases across Central Europe. A strange cluster of confessions made without any physical evidence of torture. No bruises, no wounds, no broken bones. Yet each criminal admits to impossible crimes. Talking to demons, cursing crops, dreaming the death of kings. All under interrogation led by unnamed inquisitors whose seals bear no identifiable crest. Only a single mark. A black spiral. She finds one such case hidden deep in the dusty recesses of Prague's university library. Trial of Marta Sevcikova, 1321. An illiterate washerwoman accused of bewitching a nobleman's son. The transcript is chilling, not for its violence but for its absence of it. The woman begged for mercy, screaming of flames she could not see. When pressed, she confessed her guilt before any device was applied. Inquisitorial record, Codex X 173. There's a signature at the bottom, a name half scratched out, but under ultraviolet light, Clara makes out the ghost of a word. Valen. She's not alone in this discovery. While scanning documents in the church's public registry, a man in the reading room confronts her. He's well-dressed, mid-50s, his accent northern Italian. He doesn't give a name, but he leans in and says only, Be careful digging into myths that were made to disappear. Valen wasn't a man. He was a method. When she looks up, he's gone. Back at her apartment, Clara reviews the marginalia in the Book of Fear. Some of the scribbled notes are no longer written in the same hand. Different styles, different ink. Over the years, others have found this book and added to it. Whispered editions about phantom trials, confessions without marks, and again, the spiral seal. It wasn't just about physical torment. It was about performing fear so well, the victim broke themselves. That night, Clara dreams of a room lit by nothing but candlelight with figures in black robes murmuring. A man stands at the center, not torturing a prisoner, but speaking to her gently, almost kindly, as she weeps and gives up every secret she holds. She can't see his face, only the spiral sigil etched into the wood behind him. She wakes in a sweat. The words "Valen wasn't a man" echo in her ears. Clara doesn't know it yet, but she's not uncovering history. She's unsealing it. Clara's obsession sharpens. Her apartment, once sterile and quiet, is now wallpapered with clippings, photos, and charcoal rubbings of torture devices. But one figure dominates her wall. The Iron Maiden. Every source points to it as the icon of medieval cruelty, iron spikes, claustrophobic horror, a device meant to embrace its victim in agony. But something isn't right. At the Czech National Museum, she's granted private access to a restored Iron Maiden in their archives. The curator calls it the crown jewel of medieval punishment. But as Clara examines it, cracks emerge not just in the steel, but in the story. The rivets are machine-pressed. The hinge style is 19th century. And the design? It's eerily similar to engravings from an 1808 book on Gothic folklore, not anything from the 1300s. Back at her desk, she uncovers a buried article from 1943. Written by a discredited German historian who claimed the Iron Maiden was constructed in the 1700s for a Prussian museum seeking to profit from public fascination with torture. His report was dismissed as heresy at the time, but he included a sketch. The shape is identical to the maiden she just touched. Clara contacts museums in Berlin, London, and Florence. Within a week, she receives 3 high-resolution images of Iron Maidens on display. They are all identical, right down to the forge marks. But here's the twist: each museum claims theirs is the original. Why would multiple institutions house the same device, all claiming authenticity? Why would no one question its origins? Clara digs deeper and finds shipping logs from the 19th century, marked with the name of a traveling carnival that specialized in medieval horrors across Europe. The Iron Maiden, it turns out, was never a tool of torture, but a prop, used to shock and awe spectators for coin. And yet, somewhere along the way, myth became memory. Memory became fact, and the lie took root. But something else chills Clara. One of the blueprints she uncovers, marked with a merchant's seal from 1791, has a faint mark in the corner. The black spiral. Again, why would a forgery bear the same symbol linked to Inquisitor Valen? Clara's mind spins. Was Valen real after all? Or is someone using his legend to orchestrate a grander illusion? That night, she receives a package. No return address. Inside, a photograph. A 19th century black and white image of a museum exhibit. In the frame stands a man in a bowler hat. His hand rests on the Iron Maiden. The photograph's back reads, "He made her scream without ever closing the door." Clara stares at the man's eyes. Cold, calculating, familiar. Was it theater? Was it commerce? Or was the Iron Maiden designed not to kill, but to rewrite history? She finally understands the most horrifying thing of all. The Iron Maiden never needed to be used. It only needed to be believed. Clara's search leads her to a forgotten ruin in the Czech countryside, monastery of St. Berenger, once a powerful religious outpost during the height of the Inquisition, now nothing more than charred stone walls overgrown with ivy and silence. The site was destroyed in a fire during the Hussite Wars, supposedly by rebels. But Clara's research uncovers a troubling twist. There were no recorded rebel movements within 40 kilometers of the site when it burned. And stranger still, every surviving document references the fire, but none explain what caused it. A quiet local priest, Father Tomas, agrees to meet her. He leads her to the scorched library wing, warning her not to stay past dark. As Clara steps through the collapsed doorway, the scent of ancient ash still lingers. In the soot-caked floor, she sees fragments of parchment, illegible, brittle, but some preserved by chance, wedged between stones. Among the wreckage, she discovers a bundle of letters wrapped in oilcloth and hidden in a hollow behind a wall beam. They're singed, faded, and written in Latin and Old Czech. Their correspondence between local nobles and senior clergy, dated just before the fire. The contents stop her breath. The letters speak not of salvation, but staging fear. Organizing traveling confessions to terrify nearby villages. Placing torture instruments in public squares, never used, but always witnessed. Choosing specific peasants, those with dangerous ideas or loyal ties to dissenters, as actors in elaborate, prescripted trials. And at the center of every plan, a figure known only by title, the speaker. One noble writes, "The speaker does not break men. He teaches them to break themselves in the presence of others. His fear is theatrical. His truth contagious." Attached to one letter is a charcoal sketch, a hooded man standing in a firelit room, hand outstretched over a kneeling prisoner. Behind him, carved into the wall, faint but visible, is the black spiral. Clara realizes this place didn't just witness history. It manufactured it. As she prepares to leave, Clara finds a stone tile loose in the floor. Beneath it, she uncovers a relic, twisted and rusted, like a torture device, but clearly non-functional. It's almost ornamental. Designed to look terrifying, not to inflict pain. And carved into its side is a message in Latin. "A lie spoken in fire is louder than a truth whispered in stone." That night, Clara reviews the notes in her hotel room. Her hands shake. She has enough now to draft a paper that could dismantle centuries of accepted history, but she knows that something isn't right. The flames that destroyed St. Berenger didn't consume everything. They were meant to distract from what was left behind. As she falls asleep, she dreams of firelight, chanting, and a voice, soft, deliberate, echoing behind a mask. "We do not torture the body. We ignite the soul." Clara returns to Prague, weighed down by the whispers from St. Berenger. She doesn't sleep much now. Her nights are filled with strange dreams. A man whispering confessions into the ears of weeping victims. Crowds watching, not with rage or pity, but with reverence. Something's wrong with this history. Not just hidden, not just rewritten, engineered. At a faded hospice just outside the city, Clara meets Brother Albin, a retired Benedictine monk in his 90s, barely clinging to life. She was told he once curated the church's forbidden archives before the war. He hasn't spoken in weeks. But when Clara shows him the spiral symbol from her notes, something inside him stirs. His frail fingers grip hers. Eyes cloudy but alert, he whispers through cracked lips. "They never broke me. They made me break myself." Clara leans in, heart thudding. Albin's voice gains strength in fragments. He tells her of ritualized interrogations during his novitiate. Not beatings, not pain, just a room, a chair, a man behind a curtain. He would ask questions calmly, and the air would grow cold, and you would feel watched, judged, like God had already decided you were guilty. You would confess just to make it stop. Albin breaks into a coughing fit. Clara steadies him. When he speaks again, his words come slowly, like they've been buried for decades. The device was not steel. It was silence. The speaker asked nothing, but let your own mind finish the questions. Clara shows him a sketch of one of the cryptic devices from the Book of Fear, a seated cage with no blades, no spikes, only mirrors on the inside. Albin weeps. They called it the room of reflection. You saw yourself until you couldn't bear to be seen. No marks, no blood, no chains. But the confessions poured in public, theatrical, and always damning. Clara records every word. This could be the key proof that torture wasn't always physical but emotional, psychological. Fear weaponized through architecture, silence, and the victim's own mind. Before she leaves, Brother Albin gives her a small pouch tied with rosary string. Inside is a relic, an ivory pendant carved with the spiral. He clutches her hand. They say the body forgets, but the soul remembers. Be careful what you awaken. That night, Clara reviews the pendant under UV light. Hidden in its grooves are letters, tiny, spiraling inward in Latin. The loudest screams are the ones never heard. She stares into the spiral. And in that moment, she understands the most terrifying torture device of all was never made of iron or rope. It was the mind turned against itself. Clara's investigation takes her away from the shadowed dungeons and whispered confessions and into the gilded halls where true power thrives. The courts. She pores over yellowed parchment housed in the Prague city archives, uncovering a trove of trial records from the 14th century, cases of accused witches, heretics, and traitors. The transcripts reveal a chilling pattern, confessions extracted not through brute force, but through legal cunning, social pressure, and ruthless manipulation. A case file stands out, the trial of Jakub Havelka, a minor noble accused of treason in 1328. The records show no evidence of torture. Yet Jakub confessed to conspiring against the king, naming supposed co-conspirators with eerie precision. Clara reads aloud a key passage. The judge leaned forward, voice calm but cold. "Speak truth, Jakub. Consider your family's fate. Your silence is consent to a harsher judgment." Jakub lowered his eyes, then spoke, unbidden. "I have betrayed my own blood." The confessions seem less like admissions of guilt and more like performances scripted by the courtroom, where the accused are trapped in a psychological noose, suffocated by threats to honor, faith, and family. Clara discovers letters between magistrates and local priests, suggesting coordinated efforts to control outcomes by blurring the line between law and ecclesiastical power. Church officials pressured judges to deliver harsh sentences, not necessarily for justice, but to maintain fear and obedience. In one letter, a bishop writes, "Let the courts be our instruments. The blade may rust, but the law cuts deep and lasting." Her research reveals the real torturers were often robed in silk and wielded pens, not iron. As Clara assembles her notes, she is interrupted by a knock on her door. A man she's never seen slides an envelope through the crack, no words, no signature. Inside, copies of court records from the same period, but several pages are redacted with black ink, obscuring key names and verdicts. Below, a single line is written in Latin. "The greatest fear is the fear of being forgotten." The message sinks in. The real terror wasn't the iron or fire below. It was the slow erasure of truth in the halls of justice. That night, Clara dreams of a courtroom. The judge's voice booms, but no words come through. The accused, her, stands alone, pleading silently as unseen forces write her fate. She wakes clutching the redacted papers, realizing the fight isn't only for history, it's for the memory of those who suffered in silence. Clara's investigation reaches a critical turning point. After months of chasing shadows and peeling back centuries-old lies, she receives a mysterious tip. An archivist at the Vatican Library, known only as Marco, claims to have uncovered the key to decoding the spiral cipher that dominates the Book of Fear. The meeting is arranged in a quiet cafe in Rome, far from the sterile halls of dusty archives. Marco is a slender man, his eyes sharp beneath thick glasses, with a nervous energy that hints at danger. He shows Clara a battered journal filled with annotations, fragments of the cipher's key scattered among Renaissance manuscripts and coded letters. Marco explains that the spiral symbol was a mark of a clandestine order, one that blurred the lines between torture, law, and ritual. Before he can reveal more, Marco leans in and lowers his voice. "The torture was real, but the timeline is a lie. What you believe happened in the Middle Ages, it's been deliberately scrambled." He warns Clara to be cautious. Powerful forces do not want this truth unearthed. They have protected their stories for centuries. The next morning, Clara returns to the cafe, but Marco is gone. The journal and his personal effects have vanished without a trace. No one remembers seeing him leave. Panicked, Clara contacts the Vatican Library. Officially, no archivist named Marco has ever been employed there. Security footage is mysteriously missing for the day of their meeting. Clara's emails begin to vanish. Her phone buzzes with cryptic messages. "Stop digging, or you'll be next." Determined, she pores over the journal fragments she managed to photograph. The cipher reveals a disturbing truth. The order behind Valen was not confined to the Middle Ages but persisted into the Renaissance, and possibly beyond. Clara's world narrows to one chilling question. Who controls history when the historians disappear? She returns to Prague, clutching the fragments of truth and feeling eyes watching her from the shadows. As the episode closes, Clara sits alone in her apartment. The spiral pendant glows faintly under moonlight. Suddenly, the power flickers, and the spiral seems to pulse like a heartbeat. Outside, footsteps echo in the empty street. Back in Prague, Clara's desperation grows. The cryptic messages, vanishing allies, and shadows stalking her research weigh heavy. Yet the spiral symbol keeps guiding her, leading her now to the Age of Enlightenment, centuries after the medieval era supposedly ended. She uncovers a secret correspondence between influential 18th-century philosophers, historians, and revolutionaries, figures who sought to dismantle the Church's power by painting it as a monstrous oppressor. In dusty archives of Paris, Clara discovers an anonymous pamphlet from 1765 titled The Torturer's Crown. It vividly describes devices like the Iron Maiden, the rack, and the breaking wheel painted with terrifying detail. But here's the twist: none of these pamphlets claim first-hand experience. They are works of propaganda designed to evoke horror and justify rebellion. A coded letter attached to the pamphlet reveals a meeting in a Parisian salon where intellectuals agreed. To weaken the old order, we must make the past unbearable. We forge monsters from shadows to inspire revolution. Clara connects the dots. The iconic images of medieval torture, ingrained in popular culture, were not relics of brutal reality but fabrications shaped by political agendas. She finds a ledger listing payments to artists and craftsmen hired to create torture devices for traveling exhibitions and museums built centuries after the medieval period but presented as authentic relics. One curator's journal entry from 1793 reads, "The Iron Maiden shall be our symbol. Not for truth, but for fear's utility." Her discoveries turned the legend upside down. The tools of terror were not the instruments of history, they were the instruments of control through storytelling. But Clara senses something darker. The spiral appears again in the margins of several pamphlets. This was no mere coincidence. Someone had orchestrated this elaborate narrative from behind the scenes, an unseen hand twisting history's mirror until the reflection was unrecognizable. Late one night, Clara receives an unsigned package. Inside, a broken mirror etched with the spiral symbol. On the shards, faint words. The truth shatters under the weight of belief. The message is clear: history's greatest tortures are those we accept without question. Clara's investigation has drawn the attention of shadows she cannot see. Whispers of her findings have begun to leak, and her allies grow fewer by the day. Yet the spiral's pull tightens, guiding her toward the heart of a secret buried beneath Bavarian soil. Through a discreet network of contacts, Clara learns of a forgotten noble estate outside Munich, once owned by the von Reichenbach family, a lineage rumored to have profited from the sensationalism of medieval horrors during the 19th century. With a mix of excitement and dread, Clara gains access to the crumbling manor. Inside the dust-choked cellars, she discovers a hidden chamber locked away from history's light. There, she uncovers a cache of forged torture devices, ornate and grotesque, but clearly crafted in the 1800s. Mechanical contraptions designed more for spectacle than suffering, complete with carefully aged wood, rusted iron, and ominous inscriptions. Among the artifacts is a ledger painstakingly detailed that catalogs the creation and sale of these devices to museums, traveling circuses, and private collectors across Europe. Each item marketed as authentic medieval relics designed to evoke terror and awe. But the ledger contains more than commerce records. It reveals a deliberate campaign to manufacture a history of brutality, feeding the public's appetite for fear and control. Clara finds an unsettling notation signed with the spiral symbol. "Let the people believe the past was cruel." It binds them in fear of the present. The final piece clicks into place. The Iron Maiden, the rack, the breaking wheel, none were medieval instruments of justice but part of a 19th century theatrical spectacle crafted to shape public perception and political power. As Clara photographs the forgeries, she senses a presence behind her. A shadow detaches from the darkness, a man in a tailored coat, his eyes cold and unreadable. He speaks softly. "You've seen too much, Dr. Weiss. History is a delicate balance. Sometimes it must be preserved by illusion." Before she can respond, he vanishes into the shadows, leaving Clara alone with the weight of centuries of lies. The truth she sought is now a double-edged sword, one that could topple institutions or destroy her reputation. But Clara knows one thing for certain. The greatest torture was not pain inflicted by iron or fire. It was the imprisonment of truth behind layers of deception. Clara stands before an auditorium packed with scholars, journalists, and skeptics. Months of research, decades of buried secrets, and the weight of 1,000 lies rest in her hands. Today, she will reveal the true story behind the myths of medieval torture, the grand deception crafted over centuries. Her presentation is meticulous: documents, artifacts, decrypted ciphers, and damning evidence that the infamous torture devices were often fabrications, propaganda, and theatrical tools of control. She exposes the shadowy orders, the political motives, and the modern industries built on fear and spectacle. But as Clara concludes, the room erupts, not in applause, but in cold disbelief and whispered accusations. A faction of influential historians and museum directors stand, their faces stern. They brand her a fraud. Her sources are dismissed as forgeries. Her character attacked. Behind the scenes, powerful interests with vast holdings in torture museums and media outlets work swiftly to discredit her. Clara's world collapses. Her funding is cut. Invitations dry up. The story that could have reshaped history is buried beneath layers of doubt and denial. Late one evening, Clara receives an encrypted message on her phone. It reads simply, "Welcome to the truth's prison." The spiral pendant around her neck pulses faintly, a reminder that some secrets are never meant to be free. Yet, despite it all, Clara remains unbroken. In her solitude, she records a final message, a whisper to the world. They wanted us to fear pain, but the real torment was fear itself. The fear of questioning, the fear of truth. We must remember that history isn't just what we're told, it's what we choose to believe. And sometimes, the hardest chains to break are the ones forged inside our minds. The screen fades to black, leaving viewers with the echo of Clara's words and the haunting spiral symbol slowly spinning into view. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, don't forget to like and subscribe for more dark history and untold truths. Thanks for watching. See you in the next one.